What's the deal with the phallus on the bust? There has to be a reason other than the inherent awesomeness of phalluses. Why is that the unique detail included other than the head? Okay, so this relates to a video this has been linked to, and it was a terracotta image of Aphrodite crowning a herm of Dionysus. And you might wonder what a herm was. Now, herms you've probably seen in Greek art, and you've probably seen something pretty similar to this. That is to say, it's usually a stone sort of slab with a head and a phallus. And you think to yourself, what's that about? Well, to understand that a bit better, we need to actually consider taking a step back and thinking about how Greeks worshipped. Because there is this idea, and I completely get it, it's a bit of a misconception, that every time a Greek worshipped a particular deity, they had a wonderful statue to do it to. And this makes sense because we see a lot of these, largely because they survived. There's almost sort of survival bias. These things would be kept because often they were made of marble or bronze or something that was quite durable, and they're also considered objects of worth, even after and taking them out of their religious context. They were seen as works of art. However, the other types of things that would be used to venerate a particular deity wouldn't have been. If we think then what else people were worshipping, or rather using to worship gods, we can come across things that are really much more basic, and these are sometimes referred to as zoanon. Apologies for my pronunciation. These are effectively wooden votive images that could be really basic. They could even be a simple plank of wood. Not just any plank of wood, perhaps a sacred wood or wood that had a particular religious weight to it. Say, for example, at Samos, where you have a piece of wood that's taken from a sacred tree, something like the Lugos tree, I think there, and that would have been used to worship Hera. Because again, you have to realise, not everyone has access to someone who's going to make you a lovely bronze statue or a marble statue or something, quite showy. Very often we're talking about how people related to their deities and were able to worship their deities. We're talking something on much more of a less grandiose level, something more basic. And as such, pieces of wood, or even as I think it's Callimachus mentions, or it might be Pausanias, he refers to heaps of stones being used or something similar. And again, we need to think about that as being more common than we probably do. People wouldn't have access all the time to these really quite impressive pieces of statue, whether it be marble or whether it be bronze. Hopefully this gives the herm a bit more of a context to sit in and to make sense of, because after all, what we're looking at here is that the Greeks were able to worship their deities through a number of different objects, and not every one of them were these fanciful statues that were beautifully crafted. But what about the herm and that particular element that you mentioned? Well, there's a couple of things to say. The first is that it probably takes its name after Hermes, who himself was a deity associated with boundaries, because often these were used as sort of boundary markers. But then, yes, you have the phallus. Now, the phallus exists in a number of different contexts in antiquity, and one of the most common is a word that I hate saying, and I will try to get it right, apotropaic. That is to say, a warding off of evil influences, that kind of a thing. And this is probably what's going on here, because the phallus in ancient Greece was quite a popular thing. You'll see it on Greek vases, often out of context, sometimes detached, just standing there on its own. And so what we've got here is something that wouldn't be that unrecognisable to any ancient Greek. This would have been something that I don't think would have drawn or raised eyebrows in the way that perhaps it does in the modern era. Thanks for asking, and I hope that helps.